Number 10. The Hartsville Nuclear Plant. The Hartsville Nuclear Plant is a creepy and oddly silent conglomeration of concrete buildings throwing shadows over the small town of Hartsville, Tennessee. Back in 1975, the Tennessee Valley Authority broke ground on the power plant, thinking they'd be able to fill their electrical needs in the coming centuries. At the time, this was an ambitious project. It would have been the largest nuclear power plant in the world. The sleepy town of Hartsville boomed, the population spiked, new businesses flourished, and everything was going just swell. But within 10 years, a decision was made from the higher-ups to stop the project. The result was the entire town falling apart. What was almost an industrial capital of America turned back into a slow and rural community. But nobody ever came to take down the giant cooling tower that was built. The creepy thing now stands there as if it's the backdrop for some post-apocalyptic movie. Number 9. Romania's Abandoned Crematorium. There's a very creepy abandoned crematorium in Romania where people were turned into ashes for decades. It's called the Sanusa Crematorium, and it's one of the oldest anywhere in the Balkans. It was built in 1928 and closed its doors forever in 2002. The thing with Romania is that less than 1% of their population are cremated upon death. Cremations in Romania are so rare that it's surprising this one lasted as long as it did. In the capital of Bucharest, there's only a single functioning crematorium for the 2 million people that live there. The reason is that Romanians are mostly Christian Orthodox, meaning they want their bodies to be preserved so that they can be resurrected when Jesus comes back. If your body is nothing but ash, how are you supposed to rise from the grave at the Last Judgment? In any case, after the Sanusa Crematorium was closed, nobody ever bothered to clear anything out or demolish the building. It's just been sitting there collecting dust for about 20 years now. The kids who grew up in the region have even created ghost stories and urban legends surrounding the creepy place. They say there are secret tunnels underneath the facility and that anyone who goes inside never comes out. The truth is that the crematorium is just a crematorium, although definitely disturbing. The burial chamber is still there, the altar room, all of the urns used to collect the ash of the dead bodies, and yes, the stove where the coffins were slid gently into a roaring fire. Number 8. Lost Library. The Hyde Library in Manchester opened back in 1899. After just over 100 years of service, the place was abandoned in 2015. It wasn't that people stopped reading books, but that everything was moved to a new location. Since then, the building has fallen apart. In only 6 years, what was once a proud library now looks like a great location for a horror movie. The glass is shattered, the walls are peeling, the floor appears to be bubbling, and even the ceiling is missing some of its pieces. Plus, somebody left books behind. There are books and pages strewn across the floor, broken coffee mugs, and even one room filled to the brim with fire extinguishers. According to the local Metro News, the public and the Manchester Council have tried to renovate the building, but nothing has come through yet. It's probably going to be condemned in the next few years. Number 7. A Victorian morgue. An urban explorer broke into a British morgue that has been abandoned for over 50 years. The morgue is located in South Wales, with it originally opening way back in 1790. It operated for just about 200 years until being forced to close in 1960. Since then, it's remained deserted and out of bounds. It became such a creepy place to the local townsfolk that nobody was willing to go in and refurbish the structure. So it was just forsaken and ignored. What did the brave urban explorer find when they broke in? Well, exactly the kind of stuff you'd guess. First of all, though, breaking in was not easy. The morgue is still sitting on the grounds of an active insane asylum. He had to climb over the fence in the middle of the night so he could take spooky pictures of the inside. The mortician's table is standing in a room where bodies were cut apart and dissected for 17 decades. Somebody even left their boots behind when the place shut down. And there were medical aprons hanging on hooks as if people were coming back at any minute to perform an autopsy. Do you think you'd ever be so brave as to break into a Victorian morgue in the middle of the night by yourself? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're liking the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. The Horton Mine. The Horton Mine in Nevada is not somewhere you want to get lost. It dates back to the 1800s and is one of the creepiest mines still accessible throughout the Nevada desert. Oh, and it also happens to be just a little bit haunted. Specifically, the ore removal tunnel that was once used by miners to bring the precious cargo out from deep within the earth is filled with creepy whispers. In 2013, a man named Frank decided to do a bit of exploring inside the mine, which is absolutely not allowed. Before long, he encountered chains hanging from the ceiling, looking like some kind of horrible underground torture chamber. And then there came the whisper, very much sounding like somebody trying to communicate from beyond the grave. But of course, there was nobody in the tunnel, except for Frank. Frank left in a hurry. Then in 2014, another person decided to investigate the mine. This time it was a spelunker with many years of experience exploring mines. They encountered the same phenomenon of somebody whispering to them as they descended into the darkness of the mine shaft. It could be the spirit of a dead miner. It could also be the devil himself. There's just no way of knowing. And to be honest, you'd have to be crazy to explore this place on your own. Number 5. St. Mary's Church. St. Mary's Church in East Somerton, England is ancient and not actually that creepy during the day. Sure, there's a giant tree growing out of the floor and the stone walls have been overtaken by weeds and moss and shrubbery, but it's actually pretty peaceful in the daytime, looking like a scene out of a fantasy TV show. But underneath the oddly serene exterior is a world of horror. The romantic ruin dates back to the 15th century, though it only lasted another 200 years before falling into disuse in the 17th century. Since then, the church has been totally abandoned. Now, remember the tree I talked about earlier, the one growing out of the floor? It's actually known to the locals as the witch's leg. The oak tree, according to legend, grew out of a dead witch who was allegedly buried alive inside the church. While historical records can't confirm this, it wouldn't be all that surprising. A lot of witches were burned in those days, and a lot of them were buried alive as well. The story says that the witch enchanted her wooden leg so that it would sprout a tree and destroy the church later on. It's also said that if you walk around the tree 3 times, the witch's spirit will be released. Oh yeah, and some people say the church is haunted at night by monks who are charged with preventing people from walking 3 times around the tree. Number 4. Diligence Children's Amusement Park. Diligence Children's Amusement Park is a creepy throwback to when Armenia was a Soviet Socialist republic. The park is filled with rusting rides, dead dragon statues, and even a ruined pirate ship. The location of the decaying amusement rides, the Diligent National Park, has a long and interesting history. It was a spa town for comrades of the USSR. In even older days, it was a retreat for painters and writers. And in even older days, it was a summer sanctuary for the kings of Armenia. Today, the national park is quiet and peaceful. The end of the communist era was the end of the children's park. It's being retaken by nature one ride at a time, as nobody has cut the grass in decades. But perhaps the creepiest part about this place is that there are weird paintings from Russian fairy tales that can still be found everywhere. For example, there are still paintings from the Adventures of Buratino. This is the Russian version of Pinocchio. In this other version, Pinocchio never turns into a real boy. For the Russians, the story was a hard lesson in accepting your miserable position in life. Number 3. Communist Monument of Bulgaria. There's a strange monument high up in the snowy mountains of Bulgaria. The reason it's strange? Well, there are many reasons. First of all, it looks like a UFO that landed on the peak of the mountain. Second of all, it's not a UFO at all, but a communist monument built in 1981 for about $7 million. It was supposed to be a symbol of communism and its triumph in the Balkans. Bulgaria built it on top of their Bozluja mountain at a height of about 4,500 feet. But not long after the communist UFO was installed on the mountain, it was abandoned. We all know what happened to the communists and the Soviet Union in the 1990s. With the Soviet collapse, this structure became less of a monument and more of a strange tourist attraction. It's now a creepy piece of communist nostalgia at the end of a pretty stunning hike. Spooky, captivating, and majorly weird. Number 2. The MOULBAIX Castle. The MOULBAIX Castle can be found in Belgium, originally built in 1860 and occupied until extremely recently in 2007. Locals say the castle is haunted. They say at least 2 children have gone missing while exploring the ruins of the castle. And apparently a man was found dead on the property and his killer was never identified. At least, that's what the locals say. But even if nobody was killed and nobody went missing, the castle is still extraordinarily creepy. It has 344 windows and sits on 62 acres of land. It also has dozens of rooms that appear to have been abandoned overnight. There's a study with writing books spilling off the shelves, a child's room with creepy toys that look like they've been in there since the 1800s, and room after room of dusty, antique furniture. It's a total mess inside the castle, which is actually a little sad considering its historic value. It's believed the castle was built over top of the bones of an old fortress from the 1500s, but now it's just a big spooky house filled with a lot of trash. Number 1. Wilkes-Barre Train Station. The Wilkes-Barre train station was abandoned by the coal industry and then turned into a cocktail bar. But don't worry, it was abandoned pretty much immediately after the cocktail bar ran out of customers. The actual city of Wilkes-Barre was like any other mining settlement in Pennsylvania. It was a booming town until the 1970s when the mine just wasn't profitable anymore. The city was gradually abandoned, but the railway station held on surprisingly long. Even though the trains weren't running anymore, a clever entrepreneur began to sell cocktails out of it. But alas, everyone fled the town and there was no one left to buy the cocktails. The train station is now a ghostly ruin from a time largely forgotten. Nobody's taken care of it in decades. It's dark and the lights are off, and the only thing creepier than the lurking shadows is the ugly graffiti left all over the walls. The only good news is that in 2016, a developer did buy the property and is hoping to restore the abandoned train station to its former glory. But we'll just have to wait and see if that actually happens. Which of these creepy places would you be brave enough to visit by yourself in the dead of night? Let us know in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more awesome videos right here on American Eye.